All right. All right, everybody. So welcome to the CloudStack Collaboration Conference here in Montreal. I know this is our second time we've been in Montreal in the past couple years. So it's always nice for me to get a chance to come out here and see everybody again. Let's see, so just a little bit about me. I'm Mike Tutkowski. I've been in the CloudStack community for about 6 years now, actually. This coming November will be 6 years for me. I've been the VP of CloudStack since March or April. And usually that's just like a yearly kind of stint that we elect somebody into. So next March and April, we'll be moving on to the next VP. The last 6 years, I've actually been a full-time CloudStack software engineer. I started at a startup company in Boulder, Colorado, doing CloudStack full-time. SolidFire was the name of the company. It was later acquired by NetApp a few years ago, but I've been very fortunate to be able to continue on in that role these past 3 years. It's been a really good experience. I love working with the community and making it out to all of these events. As I do work for a storage company, you can kind of see point 3. I've been mainly focused on CloudStack's storage component over the past 5-6 years, especially around quality of service and bringing that kind of capabilities into CloudStack. More generally, I've been in the storage industry for about 12 years and 20 years as a software engineer. So that's just a little bit about me. Let's take a look at some quick notices. Really, there's just a couple. Andrea Panich, right there in the 4th row back. He's got a really great presentation, successfully running enterprise workloads with CloudStack KVM and managed primary storage. It was originally going to be at 2:30 tomorrow in this room. We've actually moved it up to 11:05, but it's the same day, same room. So that, I really encourage people to consider going to that presentation. He did a great job in Berlin a few months ago. I especially like the fact that it was a joint presentation, but he did 98% of the work, so it was really, really easy on me. So come check out Andrea's presentation tomorrow. That does leave an open slot at 2:30 tomorrow, so I'm actually going to see if anybody has any CloudStack-oriented talks that they'd like to consider doing tomorrow at 2:30. Come either see me, or maybe you can find one of the other guys, Giles Surratt up front. A lot of you know him. But it would be really great to have somebody fill in for that 2:30 slot tomorrow. It's in this room. So Tuesday, this room, 2:30. So either let me know, or maybe Giles, or somebody else who you're kind of familiar with. Let's see. So yeah, welcome to Montreal. Just a couple quick facts about the city. It's the second largest French-speaking city in the world, which I've actually was fortunate enough to be in both now. The first most populous French-speaking country in the world this year. I was in Paris for a couple of weeks over the summer, and now I get a chance to come out to Montreal. It's a maybe little known fact that French was my minor in college, although I've never actually used it in my professional life. It's kind of nice to be able to come out to cities like this and get a chance to speak a little bit of French. So I always like coming out to Montreal. Anyways, it has the second highest number of restaurants per capita, so I guess we won't have any trouble finding any food around here. There's a lot of foreign students here, 18,000 foreign students from 150 different countries. And actually yesterday we were just at supper, a bunch of us, and I noticed the table across from us was a collection of students from Mexico. So could see that kind of firsthand, that there was a large population of students from different countries, which is always really cool for me to see. One special mention here is for the CloudOps, which is a company that's very prevalent in the CloudStack community. So Cloud Apps is located in Montreal. I've worked with those guys, Ian Ray, and a whole bunch of them for the past 5-6 years, almost the whole time that I've been in the CloudStack community. So it's kind of nice to be able to come out to their home city and get a chance to see those guys face to face again. They actually hosted the CloudStack Collaboration Conference 2 years ago, so 2016, at their headquarters here in Montreal. So it's nice to be able to be back to see those guys in their home city. And the last little point there, I guess it's probably the only place to see all 4 of these guys on the same flag at the same time. So cool. So let's take a look at just a quick overview of the CloudStack Collaboration Conference and its history. This also includes some of the CloudStack Days events that were going on in 2015. So you can see that we actually go back as far as 2012. That was the first CloudStack Collaboration Conference, and not only was that the first CloudStack Collaboration Conference, that was day 2 for me at SolidFire. So my first day was coming into the office, picking up my laptop, and flying out to Las Vegas. Day 2 was participating in the CloudStack Collaboration Conference, so that's kind of a really big one for me. We kind of followed that up with Santa Clara the next year. And I remember that one in particular because that was when I was getting my first code commit into the CloudStack repo. So that one I kind of distinctly remember as well. And we had a ton of great ones. We went to Amsterdam and followed by Denver. I'm actually wearing the Denver ApacheCon CloudStack Conference one. That one is, for me, particularly interesting because SolidFire is headquartered in Boulder, Colorado, which is only about 30 minutes from Denver. So it was kind of a weird one for me because I didn't actually get to go to some exotic place to go to the conference. It was basically just a 30-minute drive, and I had to fight with traffic and get into the parking garage, and it really would have been, just from my point of view, nicer to go to Amsterdam or something. But hey, it was fun in Denver too. Let's see, we had a whole bunch of them in 2015. Most of those were actually CloudStack Days events. Those were really fun. We did those in Austin, Tokyo, and Seattle. Again, just kind of look for more exotic places. I really enjoyed the Tokyo one. That was fun to be able to go up there and do a presentation where people are translating it into Japanese because there's this large Japanese population that comes, of course, to the event, but they don't necessarily speak as much English. So that was really a very, very bilingual kind of operation that we went through there. And then we went to Dublin later in 2015. That was great. Guinness is always great. As I mentioned, we visited Montreal just 2 years ago, and now we're back here. We were in Florida last year, and kind of the thing we're looking to hopefully kind of not necessarily announce here, but to put out the idea is we're hoping to do a conference next year in Brazil. So I know we tried, maybe it was last year, and it just didn't work out. So hopefully this coming year, we'll be doing one in Brazil. As we can see later on in one of the slide decks, Brazil is definitely a big hotspot for CloudStack. And I would just personally love to get down to South America and get a chance to visit where you guys are out of. I'm pointing to these guys up front here from Brazil, so. All right. So this is not a technical presentation. This is actually probably my first non-technical presentation in the CloudStack community. But I will mention a little bit about virtualization here, just to kind of make an analogy for my next point. So we all kind of understand this concept around hardware, and you put the hypervisor on top of that, or if it's a type 2 hypervisor, maybe you put a host operating system on there, install KVM, then you've got your guest operating system. You got this stack kind of going for you. So that is kind of what we're looking at for today's, or this week's conference venue. We've got kind of Apache at our lowest level, and on top of that is where ApacheCon sits. And then we're kind of the guest operating system running on top of ApacheCon. So off to the left there, we got our CloudStack Collaboration Conference. So it just kind of gives you an idea of what's all going on today and where we fit into this. Let's take a look a little bit at the timetable just to give you a feel for where presentations are going to be happening, specifically around CloudStack. So today, after this presentation, we've got 2 rooms going. We've got the talks in the ballroom, and we've got, I don't know how to pronounce it, if it's Vigor or whatever that is. We've got 2 rooms here, basically, going all day. I should have probably asked Giles how you pronounce that, but I didn't remember. So, so the ballroom and that other one with a V and a C at the end. Yeah, so two tracks basically going on throughout the whole day. That's today. It's pretty simple, just the 2 tracks. Tomorrow we got some ApacheCon keynotes that sort of take up the morning up until around 10:30. And then we're basically back into the same kind of a venue where we've got just the ballroom and the other room, which I will not say again, going on throughout the day. In the evening tomorrow, we've got a reception going on at the beer market. So I'd really encourage you to check that out. Wednesday is pretty simple from a CloudStack standpoint. We've got a hackathon going on for most of the day. So that would be great if we could get as many people as possible to kind of participate in that. We do a lot of these kind of conversations over the mailing list, and we do a really good job just kind of communicating with people that way, but it's really good to get a chance to actually sit down with everybody who you've typically just been speaking with over email the past 6-7 months and just kind of do things face to face. Sometimes you just get a lot more done that way. And yeah, Thursday is all kind of ApacheCon talks, so nothing really CloudStack specific on that day, but just sort of wanted to point that out. All right. Well, wanted to thank our sponsor, Shape Blue. These guys have been, I've known them for probably the whole 6 years that I've been in the CloudStack community. I think I visited Giles and Paul and those guys maybe 4 times in London. I was just at a CloudStack meetup in April, and I think they just had one last week. So they do a lot of CloudStack meetups, and they're really just very active in the community. So maybe let's give a round of applause to Shape Blue for sponsoring the CloudStack conference. All right. So yeah, just kind of mention some of the Twitter handles. As you're maybe going through the presentations today and taking some pictures, making some comments on Twitter, we're looking to maybe just kind of use CloudStack or CCC18 as our Twitter handles. So maybe keep that in mind as the couple days progress. Okay, so 1 year. I'm actually referring to 1 year since the last CloudStack collaboration conference. So it's really more like, I don't know, it was April of last year. So it's almost been a year and a half. So what I go through here is really going to be a little bit of some of the stuff that we've covered in the past maybe 16 to 17 months since the last CloudStack collaboration conference in Miami. So what have we been doing? We've been busy with a lot of releases. So there's actually been at least 4 major releases in the past 16 months. The major releases, so they pretty much, ever since CloudStack was donated to the Apache Software Foundation, the major release has been 4. So they all kind of start with 4. But what we consider major releases in the community, at least until we get to the 5.x release, is anything like 4.9, 4.10. So we've had actually 4 major releases in the past 16 months, 2 of which, the 4.9 and the 4.11 releases, are long-term support, LTS releases. So a lot's been going on in terms of actually releasing code that people are using in production environments. And in fact, right now, we're in the process of working on 4.12. And there's, well, we'll get into some of the features in a couple slides from now. But I guess the main takeaway here is there's been a lot of good releases. We're still developing code very vigorously in the CloudStack community. So it's been a great environment the whole time since our last conference. So let's just kind of talk about 4.11 for a little bit. This was it's the most recent LTS release, and we actually delivered more than 250 new capabilities for this particular release. I won't go through all of these in detail, and of course that's just a small handful of all of the different features that went into the release, but there was probably a dozen, 24 people working on all of these different features. And the 4.11 being an LTS is especially important to customers because in some environments they just need to make sure that they're installing a software version that is going to be continuously revved over the coming years. And so a lot of times releases like 4.9, 4.11, the LTSs, they are especially critical to the CloudStack community's success. And it's great to be able to see that we were able to update not just this new 4.11 release, but also go back and update 4.9. So I think the community's been very successful in their releases over the past year and a half. Let's just take a look. So some of the, just an example of an improvement. There's been many, many improvements, but one of them that was kind of especially critical from a very general standpoint is improvement in how fast a virtual router can reboot. I mean, it sounds like a simple thing, just how fast you might be able to reboot something. But in this case, we actually were able to drop the time down from almost 2 minutes on VMware to 20 seconds, 44 seconds on KVM to around 26 seconds, and with Zen Server, around 3 minutes down to 30 seconds. So this is especially important around upgrades and things where you're consistently having to reboot these kind of devices. So this is just a very nice user experience improvement, and it's just one sample of a lot of the improvements that have gone in over the past year and a half. As I mentioned, we're really busy with 4.12, and this is, again, just a sample of some of the features that are going into it. In fact, some of these people will actually be giving specific presentations about, for example, the backup and recovery framework. I think Paul is, let's see, Paul, I think you're doing that one, right? Yeah, and we have a whole bunch of really interesting features that have gone in already to the 4.12 release. Now, we're not exactly sure when this particular release is going to go GA, but it's just good to see that we just kind of picked up where we left off on 4.11. We just kept that same momentum going into 4.12, and we've got a whole bunch of features already in the works. So, so that's always great to see. Now let's talk a little bit about CloudStack adoption. The whole iceberg thing, maybe some of you already know kind of where we're going at with this, but I'll get to that in a moment. Let's first see if anybody knows what these numbers might indicate. Are there any guesses? It's all around CloudStack and adoption as a hint. 219, anybody have an idea? Users, okay, that's a good one. I'm not going to say whether they're right or wrong here. I'm going to go to the next page. All right. How about the 116,000?
Users.
Maybe. How about 21,000? Anybody on that one? Users? Okay. Well, let's just see what it actually is. All right, so our known user list is actually 219. And that's what we were referring to as kind of that tip of the iceberg. It's been really common in my experience, and I've talked to many people at ShapeBlue and CloudOps and a whole bunch of people throughout the CloudStack community. There's a lot more than 219 CloudStack users running in production, but this is the known list. One of the main issues we have, and I'll get to it in a later slide, is that people, once they try out CloudStack, they're not always necessarily willing to advertise that they use it for either competitive reasons or whatever. So we have a lot of reasons we've heard from people over the years why they can't kind of say that they're using it publicly, which makes this 219 users number much smaller than it really is in reality. So let's take a look at some of those other numbers and get a feel for what I mean. So in the last 12 months, our management server packages were downloaded. That's the 116,000 number. So they're being downloaded. This is just over the course of the past year. So 116,000 times the management server software itself was downloaded. And that was from 21,000, roughly 21,000 different IP addresses all around the world. So CloudStack is definitely being utilized very heavily, much more so than we would see from that 219 number. So that's the tip of the iceberg. The real user base is what you see, or what you don't see rather, below the surface of the ocean there. Let's take a quick look at a map of the world just to get a feel for where CloudStack is the most downloaded. I guess the United States ends up being the most popular place that it's downloaded from, but it's also followed closely by China, Brazil, Europe, Canada, so Russia, Australia. It's all over. It's a very big distribution of CloudStack across the world. So it's very popular software, even if we can't always get users to be in a position to claim that they use it. We've heard many different, I don't know, maybe call them excuses over the years, but the point of the matter is CloudStack is being used very heavily. I speak with people in my job at SolidFire, now it's NetApp, many times who have tried out things like OpenStack, and just because of the complication, they decided to try out CloudStack, and they tell me how happy they are with CloudStack. So I know that's kind of anecdotal in that particular case, but it seems like it happens quite regularly in my experience, and I've talked to people from many companies like ShapeBlue, CloudOps. They seem to have the same sort of experiences. So CloudStack is very much alive and well. I don't really know what to say about this particular slide, but it's very cool, and I think Doug worked on it quite a bit to draw all this data. So I'm going to put it up here for a second. This is just kind of an idea of how our management server packages have been downloaded I don't know if it's per month or whatever, over the past year or so. So you can see it's not exactly super easy to come out with particular information from this. Maybe more after a release went out, you might have seen a heavier number of downloads, but the slides will be available if anybody wants to take a look through this and kind of try to glean it for some more information. I just thought it was kind of interesting to have all of this information. Let's take a look at a quick cartoon. This is actually, I won't go ahead and read it directly, but it's the one guy saying that he doesn't really know anything about CloudStack. He's not sure what the adoption rate is. He's a little tentative about trying it out in his environment. And then somebody gets him to do it. After a few months, they've run CloudStack very successfully in production, and then we come back to them and say, great, it's working out. Would you be okay doing a white paper or some kind of publicity around it? And unfortunately, for the majority of CloudStack users, it's something that they don't necessarily feel comfortable doing. So I guess the gist is I'd really like to encourage anybody who is using CloudStack in production, even in their development environments, to help with whatever they do for their business, to see if it's something that you're able to actually do to announce that you use CloudStack. Because one of the things we've always had trouble with, I think, maybe Apache in general, is around marketing. Most of us are mainly interested, I know I am, in doing the technical stuff. But it is really important if we can do some work around marketing as well, and just get people to understand that CloudStack is, it just works, as our old Twitter tagline used to say, CloudStack works. And it's very easy to use compared to many of the alternatives. So just one little quote here, kind of that's in line with this. We had one user recently note that they spent 4 years and just millions of dollars installing OpenStack and trying to get their services up and running on that. And then only recently they decided to start again with CloudStack. Now, this is not one of my customers, but I have had probably a half dozen similar experiences in maybe the past year or two. So yeah, it's just very interesting around the marketing aspect, how we just don't get out there and market CloudStack, but it's really a great alternative to many other similar products. All right, cool. So at this point, I'm going to stop talking for a little bit. We've got 3 users who are going to come up and each do about 10 minutes talking a bit about their business, what they use, why they picked CloudStack, what they use it for, and how that's been going for them. So our first is Mike from, oh, Mike, there we are, from Cloud.ca. Maybe you can.
Actually, you want to do the same thing?
Yes.
Okay, just arrow down. Okay. Yep.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. It's my mistake. Sorry. Switch slides. All right. So, oh, yours is here.
All right, while he's doing that, so my name is Mike Guerra. I'm the VP of Product and Business Development at Cloud.ca. Just to gauge the audience here a little bit, how many folks are familiar with Cloud.ca? A reasonable amount. People I work with didn't need to raise their hands, but that's all right. All right, so what is Cloud.ca? So you've heard CloudOps mentioned a couple of times. So we were actually built and incubated originally in CloudOps since about 2014. And coming up on 2 years ago, very, very soon, we were actually pushed out of the nest. Now, what does that mean? We became a separate company, a separate legal entity. We're still very closely associated and work very closely with the folks at CloudOps. But for all intents and purposes, Cloud.ca is its own separate company. What do? We provide cloud infrastructure as a service. We're essentially pure machine services. We get things like managed services, for example, when we need them from partners like CloudOps. So in that context, we provide compute, variety of flavors, running on our compute clusters in various data centers. In addition to multi-tenant compute, we're also working on, and we'll have very shortly, bare metal servers as well. On the storage side, we offer a variety of flavors of block storage, as well as object storage. So that kind of generally rounds out what Cloud.ca has and does. Now, as all of you are very familiar, hyperscale environment has changed quite a bit over the last couple of years. And in fact, most of the news around cloud these days is around hyperscale providers. And they've all landed here in Canada as well. So in that context, why should anybody care about Cloud.ca? Well, Cloud.ca is a regional Canadian service provider. And we believe that even with everything that's happened with hyperscale providers, this is even more relevant today than it's ever been. Why? Well, Canadian data sovereignty. We're fully Canadian owned, fully Canadian operated, and in a world today where regulations and regulatory environment is becoming even more common, even more strict, and where we've got a bit of a, somewhat tumultuous political climate in various places in the world, Canadian data sovereignty is something that a lot of people are particularly interested in. So this is a big reason why something like Cloud.ca matters, but there's more to it than that. When we meet customers, when we work with customers, we like to make sure they understand, and often this is exactly what they're looking for, is they can work with us as a partner rather than as a vendor. We're not somebody who's just taking their money to provide machine services, but we're somebody that's working closely with them and is really vested in the success and understanding what each of these customers does. We can also be a bit more flexible in terms of meeting their needs. If they need some specific custom configurations or something a little bit out of the ordinary, if they want to be supported in both official languages here, both French and English, we can do that. And essentially, we build relationships with our customers. And then finally, which is something that actually matters to quite a few people, is they don't have to deal with the exchange rate. We charge them Canadian dollars. It's a predictable spend, no fluctuation on a regular basis. So, how do we work with CloudStack? So, as you can see here, we have a variety of services in cloud.ca, the lion's share of which is orchestrated by CloudStack. All of our compute, our primary block storage. We also work with SwiftStack for our object storage. And while CloudStack is great and provides us a lot in terms of service orchestration, when it comes time to run a business, there's a lot more that you need to enable the business value that you're delivering. And this is very important to us in cloud.ca. Well, fortunately, from the beginning, we were able to work very closely with the team at CloudOps and develop something called CloudMC. So CloudMC is the layer that you see. It's essentially the northbound customer-facing layer that you see on top of the services orchestration here. And that is essentially providing people both their UI interface as well as API access to provide a lot of the important business logic, product-oriented things that you need to be able to run a service provider business. Things like reporting, things like billing, things like access control, provisioning, etc. This is all built into what we've developed in CloudMC, and interestingly enough, is built in a way where not only the things you see here can plug into it, but a variety of other things like that funny OpenStack thing that was mentioned earlier, as well as even plugging it into hyperscale cloud providers. So it's quite flexible in what it does. But this is essentially how we leverage CloudStack. Now, why CloudStack? So I've got three separate bullets here, but in a way they're all kind of very intertwined. So efficiency. We felt that CloudStack, and this is proven out for us, would make it easier and more efficient for us to be able to operate, maintain, and update our cloud environment. And in fact, this has come to bear for us. Now, part of that comes in the fact that we're dealing with an open source platform. So if we hit a problem, well, we can tackle it and try and fix it, but that we is a lot bigger than just us at cloud.ca, right? It's the community. When we need something, sure, we can do it ourselves, but we're a small team, we're not a big team, but we have the power of the community to help us out. And I think over time, we've leveraged that community as well as given back very nicely to that community, which we'll talk about a little bit more. So I think that the combination of all of those things together made this, at the time we chose to do it, the right choice. And given our growth and where we stand today, definitely continues to be the right choice for us. And so we've contributed and been part of a number of projects in the CloudStack community and continue to work on these. A lot of these things are up here. I won't read them all. I'll let you go through them. I know one of them is actually having a talk. The first item there related to our remote management VPNs and how we leveraged Ike v2 and integration with Vault. There's going to be a talk on that, I believe, later today. But there's a variety of things, some of which are very interesting. We're still fine-tuning our integration with MAS to provide bare metal in cloud.ca. These are all things that we've been working on, in some cases continue to work on. And then we've got a whole bunch of other things that we're continuing to work on, things like VM lifecycle improvement. So over the life of a VM, when you deploy it, you would hope your service provider environment grows a cluster that could be 4 or 6 hosts today, could be 8 or 10 or 12 in the future. Where does that VM end up as things grow, as you do maintenance, as you move things around, as you might have certain constraints? Maybe people have anti-affinity rules on that VM. Maybe it has a particular license associated with it. Maybe it's a Windows VM and it needs to be in a certain place, or you want it to be in a certain place. We're working on things to improve that and automate it so that the life cycle of a VM can be done in a much more efficient fashion and isn't more of a manual task for our operations team at Cloud.ca. And obviously that's something that, as part of the community, other people will be able to leverage over time. So essentially that is it. Anybody who's interested in Cloud.ca wants to try it out, trial.cloud.ca. Be happy to let you do that. Appreciate it. Thank you very much, and I will hand it off to the next one.
And is it on? Oh, and now we got Ingo from iTelligence.
Can you switch over to presentation? Maybe
It's actually right here. It's intelligence.
you see. Okay. Hello, welcome. So my name is Ingo Joachim. I'm working for iTelligence, and have been asked to say something about our company, what we do with CloudStack, and why do we do that. So just giving a quick idea of that. So with iTelligence, we have several service centers around the globe. So mostly what we are doing is about SAP. So we either do work closely together with SAP or dealing with SAP software. So we help customers to do the life cycle for SAP software, installing them, doing projects, consultancy, and so on. And as well, that comes in where we come from. So we also have an infrastructure part there. So that means we are hosting SAP systems in our data centers globally. So we help them to work on the special requirements they have and run this. And this is where we know like what are special needs for running an SAP system. So for the infrastructure part, so we are helping also customers to get all the new requirements they have. So especially they have hybrid scenarios coming up. So they need to answer the questions, the current questions, also how they scale into the future. So they have systems on site in their data centers and as well also in the public cloud. And there we have special requirements, and we know how this all fits together because we know about the infrastructure and we also know how the applications are running. So this in combination is quite important. So what are we doing with our cloud? So I just put up lots of SAP logos here. So because that's our main focus. So running from production systems, trainings, development, and demo systems. So it's all the different varieties. So we're using CloudStack to easily deploy new installations. So especially, let's say, for the development systems. So we have like developers. They need to program an add-on for an SAP system, but who is installing the system for them, where they can try out and test. So this is where we provide all the infrastructure for it, doing lots of automation to deploy it. So there will be a talk by tomorrow, so I explain that more in detail how that works. And same with like training systems. So usually you need a consultant installing a system and so on, and we do that in combination. So we just need like for training 10 SAP installations. And we do that with CloudStack and also, again, with lots of automation behind. So, why do we do that in this private cloud environment? So, we put together lots of pieces, different technologies. In the middle is always CloudStack, so we have all the technologies around. And that means we have the full control on that, so we are not depending on other third-party things or products changing, so that's why we have that all together. Then the SLAs are important, so you can imagine such a SAP systems is quite important for the customer, and yeah, they're not all really cloud ready, those applications. So yeah, it's not like just spinning up containers, so it's like huge databases and so on. That's not so easy to handle that in a public cloud environment. So that has some downsides here. And the same as with the special use cases. So we have, you saw it on this slide before, we have like this SAP HANA database, which consumes like terabytes of memory. So those are also not available on public cloud providers with this really huge amount of memory. So going back to a few years ago when we thought, okay, we need a platform to run some virtual machines. So these are some of the criteria that we came up with why we decided to go for CloudStack. So for example, the multi-tenancy. So we checked out several systems, but you were always available. It was always possible to like run different projects and put different permissions on it and so on. But the problem was that like doing all the user stuff and giving permissions was all on the administrator layer, and this was not like shared. So in CloudStack you have the possibility to have that all separated, and you can easily give that in different customers' hand. Of course, multi-hypervisor support was one of the key things we needed. And open source also makes it easy to talk to your boss and say, okay, it's open source, it doesn't cost anything. Okay, coming to my last slide. I think I just picked up the CloudStack Works again. So we are running CloudStack over 4 years now, so really successful. So I think that's nothing more to say about that. The upgrade path, I think this is one of the key things which makes it successful. We saw it with other projects like, I don't know, OpenStack running or something like that. So we set up a huge project and dependencies between the models and so on. In CloudStack, it's just, you just do it, and it's, my colleagues, they have a talk also to how to upgrade it, and it's done in 30 minutes, so easily. Yeah, and again, so we have a great community on CloudStack, and it's free, and you can take your chance and just work on that together with others. So that's about it. So thank you very much, and have a nice time.
Okay, our next is Andrea Penich from HIAG Data, and let me get this on you. I'm fine.
Mike? I hit the wrong button. If you can. Oh, yes. Yeah. Hi everyone. My name is Andrea Panic. I work for HIAG Data. It's a Swiss-based cloud company. And I'll just give a small kind of introduction before I actually explain a few things about CloudStack. So HIAG Data is basically Swiss-owned, I like to say, kind of daughter company of the company HIAG. They were in different kind of business for last 120 years and more. Initially in the lumber or wood industry, then as the time changed by, they moved to the real estates. And actually that's quite interesting because of the next slide. during this real estate era of the company, they basically acquired a huge number of physical sites across whole Switzerland. And what that actually did is that enabled us to, at some point, build a huge fiber optic network, which is purely privately owned by HIAG. So this is not leased from, let's say, public telecom companies. It's really ownership of the HIAG. It's 100% private stuff with certain SLAs, guaranteed latency, with over 99.99 times 100 gigabits in a backbone network. And of course, we are simply, let's say, certified according to some of the regulations, including the FINMA, which is very interesting for financial institutions, which needs to actually move their workloads to the cloud. And that's pretty much it. We have some kind of remote connections to Amsterdam, Frankfurt, and some other locations where actually I will use them to explain in another slides. Now, the reason why we chose CloudStack, I believe the previous two companies explained very well. I didn't particularly prepare for this kind of presenting during this keynote, but I will just basically verbally explain. We already see all the nice bullet points, which are really true. It really works. It's easy to set up. It's easy to operate. I know a great guy who is actually a cloud consultant from some of the German company who told me that all the OpenStack project that he's aware of in the last couple of years, they are still in the implementing state. Something similar probably as Mike explained. By the way, you have the year 2019 in that slide. So you may want to change it, but yeah. Basically, that's the fact, because the way the OpenStack is architectured, you need to point many pieces together. It's really hard. And CloudStack is very, I would say, integrated. The biggest challenge is actually, and that's not a huge challenge, is just to make it fully redundant in sense of management servers, load balancing stuff, but nothing special that you haven't done maybe with any kind of other web application, let's say. So basically, we started with CloudStack December 2012. We are not as big, I would say, committers, and maybe not that we are not contributing that much to the product itself, certainly in comparison to some other guys. But we are obviously a heavy consumer, and we did obviously a few stuff. We did commit a few stuff that were maybe interesting. So basically, we are a public cloud provider, and the focus is obviously on privacy and everything else that Switzerland laws and obviously the technical things provide within the cloud stack as well. And basically, I'm not sure if I should continue explaining why we choose cloud stack. That's already said, and in my presentation tomorrow, you will actually be able to see. I would say, from my point of view, pretty interesting story of the experience moving up, how we grew last 4 years, what challenges we have, how we solved them, and so on. So it's hopefully very interesting one. Now, beside CloudStack, we do offer a couple of different services to our customers. So basically, on the left, you see that we have, via the previously explained fiber optic network throughout the whole Switzerland, we are enabling customer sites, this integration and so on. Basically, we are connecting remote premises to our private network. Via our private network, customers reach the cloud. And then inside the, let's say, cloud or the data centers, we are very soon actually going to launch the container world. I believe beginning of the next year. We already do offer S3 compatible object storage, which is based on certain solution, but it's fully, I would say 99.9% compatible on the protocol level, so a drop-in replacement literally for the Amazon stuff. We do also operate some other, let's say, cloud solutions based on Azure Stack, then also a custom-built cloud for Zero, as we call it internally. And also what might be interesting for some customers is that we are about, I believe in October, if I'm not mistaken, we're about to launch direct private peering connections to Microsoft Azure and Office 365. So basically, customers will come through our private network, through the core of the network, and then up to the via private patching connections, basically to the Microsoft data centers in Amsterdam, I believe. this will end up in Amsterdam. So basically, we are able to offer a guaranteed latency from customer locations via cloud, via optical network up to the public cloud providers, which I just mentioned. And that's, I believe that's, we are, as far as I was told, we are basically the only provider that has this kind of connection to at the moment, Microsoft services, but I believe the other public vendors will come soon as well. Microsoft is, by the way, sponsoring our lunch, so I hope that's fine that I mentioned them so much. Anyway, yeah, so Mike, I use only 6 minutes.
That's perfect.
Not enough or maybe enough. It's almost time. But yeah, anyway, if you're interested more in the CloudStack story and our experience, which is not everybody sharing the dirty laundry in sense of a bad experience with certain issues and how we solve them, something is wrong from our side, some things have been improved. Please join me tomorrow at 11:04 and 11:05 in this room, and there are some very interesting demos as well. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay, perfect, thank you. All right, thank you. So I know we're a little behind here, so let me quickly tie this up, wrap this up. So anyways, yeah, I mean, basically, kind of getting the point across here that we've just got a great community going for us in the CloudStack community. Let's keep that going. In particular this week, let's really work on sharing ideas with each other, working with each other, whether it's at the hackathon or in between presentations. Just get to know each other face to face and have a really good time this week. One thing I would like to mention, and we didn't point it out earlier, is that in addition to in addition to Shape Blue being a sponsor for this particular conference, CloudOps is also a big sponsor for the conference. I've known the guys at CloudOps, just like the ones at Shape Blue, for 5-6 years now. It's a great company located here, as we mentioned many times during the presentation, right in Montreal. So we really appreciate those guys sponsoring the CloudStack events that they have over the years, in particular this week, but over the course of the past 5-6 years as well. So how about a quick round of applause for CloudOps as well. Thank you very much. And yeah, basically I don't have a whole lot of time left here, so let's just keep this going throughout the week and into the future. So thanks a lot, everybody, and kind of have to wrap it up here. I think we're behind schedule. Thanks.